Ready? Aim!
There's too many!
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!
We are back. It's another week. I am back, and this week I am joined by a relatively special guest. Relatively special, anyway. It's Vanvan from way over in Indonesia. How you doing, buddy?
I came back from the dead just to come back to this tournament.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's such a scary thought for me to just you know what? I'm just gonna decide to play Sif again. I'm just gonna join the tournament and then win it. Just usual Van things.
Van things. For those of you who don't know Van, if you're relatively new watching or haven't been following for long, Van was an old player back in the way 1.6 days of lockdown and things like that, who basically stopped playing for a while, right? Completely left. Are you playing some Conquest, right, or something else?
Yeah, just the nature of games here in Indonesia, we rotate between a few games at once. I think when we're doing the full lockdown, everybody just playing Civ. And then when we come back from lockdown, when people just started to play in stores again, we have Conquest, Crisis Protocol, and then, Shatterpoint at one point. So it just rotates between a few games here in Indo, but then within the last 3 months, because of the whole Battle of the Realms tournament, which had a series of qualifiers per nation, which ended up in a point system per nation to get sent to as a representative. So then everybody started grinding tournaments again. The community started participating again. So yeah, I've started playing from a while back. So a while back ago when Flateman was 10 points, 2+ armor save with critical blow. That was how old I was playing this game. So it's been there for a while.
Yeah, it's crit blow precision. That is a combo.
Yep. Back when Tyrion can still do a cunning ploy to charge.
Cunning ploy to charge, and was that the Preston Grenfield cycle cards like a Maniac days as well?
Yep. Basically the heyday of Stark 10 activation versus Lannister 7. Fun.
Yeah. Free folk with auto wounds on traps.
Oh yeah, Free folk was done.
Everyone had. Everyone's gonna blow their minds when I say this. Guess what? Everyone had Varys in their lists.
Varys wasn't like what they were now. Well, now everyone has Varys in their list for very different reasons. But back then, Varys was you bring it simply because you don't want people to play Sif.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Walder back in the day as well, just because people hated a bit. Dogs.
Yeah, killing dogs. Yeah, and also kill dogs. Important. Anyway, we're not here to reminisce about the old Sif days, huh, Mickey?
We are a little bit, but yeah, you're right. We're here to move on, unfortunately, and look at some of the more recent stuff. But yeah, so you it wasn't on stats, but you attended and then won the first Battle of the Realms event that Simon has put on. For referencing, people don't know, never heard about these. These are kind of regional events rather than having a world championships. So having a regional event like a European championships, it's similar to that. In this case, we're talking about the Asia Pacific region. So Van from Indonesia mixing up with guys from China, guys from Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong,
Chinese Taipei.
Yeah, Chinese Taipei. You name it, basically, right? Across the spectrum from the Asia Pacific region and playing together in one event.
So it was definitely a very interesting event because I think this is the first time the first CMON Fest in 2019 was sort of the progenitor of such an event. I think we went to Singapore at that moment, but it was mostly only for Singaporeans. He managed to sneak in a ticket because we just came there on like a qualifier day and just won the tournament. So we somehow managed to snag a qualifier, but that was sort of like the proponent. And then the initiative was sort of quieted down because of COVID, 2010 until like 2012. So, 2021, 2022. So nothing was happening during that time. And then when the nations start opening up again, Simon Asia had this initiative of essentially putting everyone back in the table. And what better ways to do that to simply to arrange like a series of tournaments between countries to again foster the community of Asian Civ players. I know there's not a lot of us here, but it is a slowly growing community. And put them all together, put some of them on a flight to Bangkok, Thailand, have an event, 1-day event, just to have everyone around and see what happens.
So it's probably the most interesting thing there. You mentioned it is a 1-day event, right? So the event itself was actually held over like the Simon Expo was like over 4 or 5 days, right, or something.
The Simon Expo was only for 2 days.
It's only for 2 days. Okay. Yeah. But then they had an event on the Saturday, didn't they? Which was the kind of like another qualifier for basically for people who've heard of like the US version of the Last Chance. It was a bit like that. There was a few people from the Saturday who could then qualify for the Sunday.
Correct.
And then you obviously played in the Sunday at the event itself rather than the Last Chance.
So a little bit of some information about the tournament. Basically, it's almost like a 3 months, 2 to 3 months kind of event for each country, where essentially they host between 5 to 6 mini tournaments in each of the different countries to accumulate points, and then whoever it was by the end of those period, which has the highest point, get a free accommodation, a ticket to Thailand, and the 2 other guys from the country. So in total, 3 people will then get qualified for this event.
Did they actually pay for flights and hotels and stuff for you?
Yeah, they did pay for the flights for the first one, but not hotels.
Okay. Right.
So it's pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. Essentially, you get paid to play. So it was a pretty good deal for me.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, getting that is a win, really. All right then. All right. So it was you attending. Was who were you going over with? Was it I'm guessing. Was it Carl Dogo? Gogo? Not.
Yep.
Dogo. Yeah.
I was with Carl Dogo and another person called Albert. He's sort of like what he ended up going because 2 other players can't make it. So he was sort of like the I would like to say like the last pick, but he did win the Crystal Brush, so yeah, he was damn good at painting.
You did basically clear up, right? Because you obviously came first, didn't you? Were you the most successful team as well?
Yep.
And then you obviously got Crystal Brush.
Luckily, Albert won at least one of his games. And Carl Dogo did a very successful run of 3-1 with Targaryen. That was also a great achievement by him. He only lost to the eventual runner-up of the tournament, who was running a very powerful Stark list. And he got a bit, I think either it's a combination of rolling the wrong list plus slight, we're not really exactly practicing too much against Stark. Mm-hmm. And then we realized Stark was the power bomb that they were essentially like a couple of months before the tournament. So we didn't really practice too much, and there was not a lot of Stark players locally as well.
Interesting you say that the power bomb they are. I mean, what were you really thinking mostly just the
I was expecting a lot of Lannisters, to be honest.
Oh, fair.
I was expecting lots of Lannisters. Greyjoy was also very surprising that there's no one using Greyjoy at the tournament.
Okay.
So it was a very Lannister and Stark heavy tournament. Mm-hmm. So I think like if I don't exactly have the spread on top of my head, but I think like the most played faction was Lannister, followed by Stark, followed by I believe was it I think it's Baratheon, and then like a couple of like random weird selection every now and then. But I know like the most unplayed one is definitely Free Folk at 0 players, Martell at 0 players,
Yeah.
and then Greyjoy I think only has like 1 player.
Right. I mean, I know. Was it 22 you had in the end?
Yeah, it was 22.
Yeah,
Yeah.
22. It's interesting because obviously we'd spoken about it before. And Lannisters in general is like just a popular pickup at the moment. A lot of people are playing Lannisters kind of internationally. Probably the most played faction in the game right now, and I'm saying that without having looked at the data on stats, but I'm fairly sure it's the most played faction. And I think that in itself is interesting. Obviously, Kevin and Gregor both being very popular picks within the faction, but certainly by no means the only. Yeah, it's interesting to see and hear that you're kind of replicating that over there. What's actually more interesting to me is the Night's Watch pickups, the Free Folk pickups are like they're just not there, and I think a lot of people playing Starks, a lot of people playing Starks. I'm guessing they're running like the Tully Cavalier, Winterfell Guardian type stuff.
Oh yeah, that shit is the nuts. If you don't have any tech against that, I think you're in a lot of trouble back in the tournament night.
See, this is actually super interesting. So we were talking about this exact list. I saw about this exact list like multiple times. And we ran into it. We played an event team tournament this weekend, and Carlo ran into it, and just using a standard Kevin 8 build, and it was just like, I'm not gonna say it was easy for him. I didn't play the game right. I wasn't watching. I was playing my own game, but like, I got the impression that he wasn't that phased by it. It was like, cool, I just shut down the things that you could do, and then it was basically game. I think that's the issue with like that kind of combo and those kinds of things, is that they're quite easy to shut down if you know what you're doing, and as you say, if you have the tools to do it. But if you don't have the tools and you don't know how to tackle it, they are like the opposite way, right? They're almost impossible to beat. So it is interesting to see that those again picked up internationally as well. Yeah, I mean the faction breakdown, having a lot of Lannisters and Starks. I mean, you're always going to get quite a lot of Lannisters and Starks anyway, I think, just because of the starter boxes, right? Especially with the re-release. I am surprised you had no other factions really represented that high. Like, certainly no Free Folk is an interesting one for me, definitely.
Well, I was at one point talking to you whether I should bring Free Folk or not, right?
Yeah.
And then I somewhat decided against bringing Free Folk. And then I just considered playing Lannisters, which turns out to bring me the win. I think it was just a solid option. I think most of what Lannisters is doing is, very contingent of what the opponent is trying to do and just stopping it. Especially with like a lot of the things that the Stark player wants to do. Like, for example, they kept wanting to recycle Swift Maneuver or Assault Order, and then each time they activate their Sansai, you have an Intrigue and Subterfuge ready. That could damper a lot of their momentums. So I think Lannister was just an assault choice. And if you're bringing Tywin, which I should bring in every list now going forward, I think Tywin is just a really powerful NCU. Like, stops momentum cold. It can snipe off like the weird 4-wound models, like the Stark Wolves or even like Watch Marshal if you're bringing them. Lannister just have a lot of options really, and I think it's what makes the game that I play very interesting. Because it's very interactive. Well, interactive in the sense that I stop my opponent from doing their powerful stuff.
Your opponent just sits there and takes it, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna get charged by an assault order on like an opening on turn 3, so take a counterplot.
Yeah. Okay then. So someone in chat, Carl in chat was saying, was it Cerberus as people are calling it? Yeah, the 3-list format, right? It's been called Cerberus for years now, after the 3-headed dog.
Really?
Yeah, the 3-headed dog, right, that guards the underworld in Greek mythology or whatever. So it's been called Cerberus since it was first kind of brought into song. I want to say about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Now the variant that's being run in Asia is you can't repeat lists until they've all been played, right?
Yep.
I've shared my opinions on it before. I've never played a Cerberus event for what little it matters. What is your take on it yourself? Having played in it, obviously having won it, but then also, coming in to prepare for it and things. I basically told you, and this is no word of a lie, I'd basically said to you, look, I expect you to win the event if you take X, Y, and Z because you're a good player. You've got history in the region, definitely of doing very well. And that basically played out, right? But with the 3-list format, no repeated commanders. You can't pick up a commander and play until you've played them all. Then you play 4 rounds. I'm looking mostly at like game 1 and game 3 as being the 2 games that matter the most, probably. You went for a Kevin build. Was it the 7 activation, 8 activation? Do you go?
So maybe let me just quickly talk about why I make the 3 list.
Yeah,
The 3 lists that I picked.
Yeah, go on.
And then sort of like what's my thought in like bringing those lists in like the tournament, because you're right, with the nature of the 3 list format, I think the biggest quote unquote weakness of it is that there will be always your weakest list, whether it will be rolled with the first one because you're up against essentially an unknown, or you're unfortunately having to use your strongest list because you're fighting against a very powerful player. Now, luckily, because I know most of the players there, I can relatively gauge what the opponent's power levels are. So anyway, back to the list selection. So I was using Kevin 8, which hindsight I would have preferred maybe Kevin 7 with Tywin.
Okay.
Because that would have been probably like very good, because bringing an 8 activation nowadays is a little bit of a crutch, especially if you're fighting a Stark 7, because they do get the 2 extra tokens where they can use it for like their tempo turn. Essentially, it stops you from using your crossbow as like the final activation and makes your predictable a bit more awkward.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think the 7 is probably like the more superior option compared to 8. But again, opinion can change. So anyway, I ended up using 8, the Kevin 8, and then I'm using Gregor, usual pre-nerf GCS. So GCS, Sandor, Gregor, City Watch. I think very, very solid list. Just a very solid list. Like that list is ridiculous, really. You have everything. You have Tywin. You have 2 killer units, and then you have Tyrion in Halberdier, which is just that combination is just ridiculous. You have a unit that can like stand an assault with like a bubble of counter strategy and gives you like your best card every turn. Yeah, quite ridiculous. Now, for the last list, I was essentially tossing up between 2 things. The first one was Tyrion 7, which, based on several discussions I had with, again, you and Brett as well, they seem to favor like Tyrion's. Well, Brett seems to favor Tyrion more. But then I thought about it, and then I was looking at like some of the Polish list, and then I stumbled into a Sparrow 7.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So Sparrow with Warrior Sons, with Knights. No, doesn't use Knights. Warrior Sun Sparrow, Tyrion in GCS, a Poor Fellow, and then Lannister Guardsman with Barristan Selmy.
Okay, so Tyrion GCS, then you've got Barristan Selmy Guardsman. God.
Yep. So that unit alone. So in my first opponent, I was fighting against Lannister, and it was Game of Thrones. So I was thinking, so if I just pick a list where I can't die, my opponent can break through me. So that's why I picked this list against him. And he was using Kevin 7. Essentially, the Guardsman just ignores like the crossbow. Like they're not gonna shoot at the Guardsman. So the Guardsman ended up like tanking like 2 units at once and just refused to die.
Fair enough.
It was a fairly solid list. I like it, but I wouldn't probably bring it again because I think if you just Tywin it at the right moment, it just crumbles.
Yeah. And I mean,
it essentially optimized the Tywin.
yeah. It also, I mean, for me, I was the brigands, right? Unit of cavalry, I'm guessing you're running, and then like 3.
Oh no, I didn't use a brigand. I used uh, Tyrion GCS, and the last unit is just a. No, I don't think it was a poor fellow. It was.
Naked
Oh
Greg.
damn it!
Not Greg, right? Mounted Greg.
It was Mountain. Yes, it was Mountain. It was
Mounted.
Naked Mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you're
And
running.
then I run a cut. No, I run a Kevin NCU, and then two
Kevin.
force.
Kevin
Yep.
Pycelle and like Varys, right?
Varys, yeah.
Yeah.
And then a turncoat, so that's 39. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So the guards, so the Kevin mitigated basically the weakness of the guardsmen, because it was Game of Thrones. So without the shift to you're not gonna able to reach the middle objective. So I was using Kevin essentially just to put them into a better position. And once the guardsman is having the middle ground, like nothing can really touch it really in the last or anything. Anyway, so that was the 3 list that I bring. And the first opponent that I fought was Brent from China, and he was running basically a similar list to what I was running, except he was running a Kevin 7 instead of a Kevin 8. Right. So in the absence of everything else, I know that he was a good player. He fought against Khal Drogo in a practice match yesterday, so I felt comfortable in bringing Sparrow against him. Again, the scenario also helped, which was Game of Thrones. The second match was a little bit more difficult because I was fighting against Stark in what was that scenario? Clash of Kings.
Oh right, okay.
No, not Clash of Kings. Sorry. In no, it was right. Yeah, it was Stark in Clash of Kings. So he was running an Eddard. Well, he eventually picked the Eddard list. I ended up rolling Kevin against him. And it was just sort of playing KG with Kevin, with him in the middle, and just being shot. And luckily, I won because of the predictable maneuver. Really, it just gave me a lot of momentum, and it forces his cavalry to not move plenty of times. But still, the lack of Tywin was felt because at one point his Eddard unit broke through, and then just tore everything apart.
Yeah,
with all the free attacks.
You're getting the Fury of the Fallen off just constantly.
Yeah.
Going through with this, especially with Sword Orders.
Yeah, Fury of the Fallen, etc., etc. It's just a lot of free attacks. Tyrion can only do so much. Counterplot can only do so much.
Yeah.
But you're right. So the first match, I think most players pick their weakest list. I think by consensus, most players will pick their weakest list. Except, I think I was having a conversation with Steven. I think he's from Singapore, Zirayan in Discord. I think you know him.
Yep.
So he was also essentially bringing his weakest list, and the opponent was also bringing his weakest list. And he was making a comment that if only the opponent was bringing his Mother of Dragons list against him, then he would have just destroyed the list completely. Because Steven's list did not have a good answer against Mother of Dragons with the list that he's bringing.
Yeah.
So player knowledge is also important in this type of list. It's the type of like tournament, because then you get to know like what's the relative power level of what the opponent is. Like for example, if you know that I'm facing you in the first round, I'm not going to bring my Sparrow list. For example, I'm going to be bringing either Gregor or Kevin.
Yeah.
For example. But knowing that one of that list is gone makes selection of round 2 and round 3 awkward. Because I had essentially the best role. The first match I was confident bringing my weakest list. The second one was a little bit of a wild card, and then I left Gregor for my match 3, which was against Steven. He was running his John Nightwatch list. I was bringing my Gregor. Yeah. And I think, essentially Gregor just tore through like the entire line, and it was unleashed. So it was pretty good. It was a close match as well, but Gregor assault order, with confirm assault order with Tyrion is just too good.
Yeah, and specifically, I'm guessing he was running like the John 8 version or something.
No, he was running a John 7.
Right. Okay.
So it was a Ranger Hunter with John, Scorpion, Ghost, Cold Hands, and Ranger Vanguard.
Oh, and then only 2 NC.
Oh no, you're right. It is 8.
It's the 8, yeah, because
Never
you
mind.
get yeah.
Yeah.
So the classic John 8, and the John 8 versus the basically that Gregor build is interesting. It's the matchup that Carlo and Sophie played at LGT. And you know, I don't think it's easy for either list. I think both lists have to do a lot of stuff to try and win. Which is good. I mean, it's good that you played that as like round 3. I think it's very interesting as well. Because like, and I think this is the bit that gets me, and this is the bit I don't really understand. And whether or not you can shed some light on it for me would be great. But like, you played a 3-list format event. In game 1, you played your weakest list. And then for the rest of the 3 games, you basically played a 2-list format, but in one of them, you didn't have a choice, right? Because you were never realistically going to pick the list you played in round 1 again in round 4, I'd have thought.
No.
So realistically, you were just playing 2-list format, but you were forced to play something in round 1 that wasn't as good, effectively, and in round 3, you were forced to take a matchup that may or may not have been good for you. In this case, it was like, I won't say it was good, but it was like fine. And I think that's my problem with it. I just don't see the benefit of the 3-list idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I know you've said a lot of opinions, both in like in the videos and also in private in our little discussion. But I think what the list is good at is encouraging diversity in list selection. It allows people to sort of explore, your third commander essentially, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. I think it's good that it forces people to sort of think a bit more creatively of what they're trying to do instead of bringing like the typical 2-list format. This is the list against that, and this is list against that. Because even in like 2-list formats, there are times where you just use like 1 list, right? Because you know that list is very, very good, or you just have the good matchup for it. You're just bringing Gregor 7 like every single time you would. So in that regards, there is that strength of the 3-list format, but competitively, and this is what I dislike as a competitive player, is me not having an option. Imagine a tournament, say like, I don't know, well, where one day we will make our own like Asia GT, for example.
Yeah.
And then we have to bring a 3-list format. And then in the first round, I get paired up against Steven, for example. I kept using Steven as an example because that's one of the only players that you know, and I know that he's also a good player.
Good player.
We're both going to be kind of screwed, whoever will win or whoever will lose. Well, or screwed whoever wins then rather than whoever loses, because then your best list is gone in the first round.
Yeah.
And then that might lead to the situation where then the second round you have to use either your other good list in order to simply just claw through the win, and then leaving your third round essentially with your weakest list against potentially their strongest list. But then on the other way around, because you lost the first round with your strongest list, then you can use your second round list, which is your weakest list. I know you're not going to score like a win, but if you're just aiming for like a Swiss cutoff, then losing the first round with your best list, rolling then your weakest list on second, and then going to third with like your medium list is also pretty good.
Yeah.
So it created a little mind game which I dislike, to be honest, as a competitive player, because you're already thinking of like, oh, what the opponent is going to bring, what are the matchup, what are the scenarios, and then on top of that, you have to select between 3 lists in which you're not going to see them again until round 4. And I just dislike the agency that was taken away from a player, because it rewards you for essentially rolling a selection against the opponent, right? Because it's just basically random.
I'm gonna throw a cat among the pigeons as well, and you said that one of the things that it did for you is that one of the things you think is a benefit is it allows people to explore less used commanders.
Mhm.
Do you feel you explored the High Sparrow, given that you yourself admitted you basically went online, looked at what people were running with High Sparrow, and I'm not going to say you copied the list, but you basically just went, that'll do, used something that people were already kind of using, and just went with that?
I'm not gonna defend the fact that I'm a net decker. Like,
well, no, but
look,
like,
at the highest level of competition, you do what you need to do. You know, if it means piloting someone else's list, which was successful, then so be it, right? I'm not gonna be, going like, oh, it's an original idea. Of course, it's not an original idea. Like, whatever. But the point is that it is what it is, in the sense that it allows people also to like bring potentially a third list that is only good in certain scenarios, which was probably the intended direction they wanted to do with the tournament. Like, for example, you have a list that's really really bad for Fire and Blood,
yeah,
but you created a list specifically Fire and Blood that you know it will be very good for Fire and Blood, that you're just gonna bring it. However, you get also thrown one of those wrench again, because the list is also the scenario is also randomized. So not only that you're bringing 3 lists, the scenario is also randomized.
yeah,
So the way that me and Carl Drogo was practicing for it is just we just roll a random scenario, then we roll a random our list. We just randomize everything and see what comes out of it,
mm-hmm.
because that's the best way for you to practice. But yeah, you're right. It just means that instead of you bringing like the 2 lists that you got, you just look up online and look at the third one and slap it and it's done. Uh, but
Yeah.
at the
I mean,
same time, it's it it. I don't know. I think the intention of the tournament was to sort of promote something that's a little bit different. But
sure.
honestly, and I've been talking to this with like a lot of the competitive players from Singapore, from Thailand, also from China, is that they don't really enjoy the 3 list format more so than the 2 list format. Um, Specifically for the reason that I just said, because it encourages people to bring their weakest lists on the first one just to get it out of the way first. Like, done, out, that's it, done. Which is what I felt. I brought my potentially weakest list, get it over and done with.
And
Then
then played 2 list format for the rest of the event.
play Kevin and Gregor, just
Yeah.
just typical Lannister game.
The thing that annoys me with it, and I'm not saying about your list choice and your experience as well, is I don't think it allows people to actually explore lists. Because my immediate reaction to a 3 list format is, I would say, are people running like ridiculously heavy skew lists? Like lists that are incredibly polarizing with how they function. Because in a 3 list format, you can kind of do that. Because if you run these incredibly polarizing lists, your opponent looks at your 3 lists in round 1 and goes, well, these 3 lists I'm going to face into are completely different in terms of strategies. I have to pick a list now that's going to be any one of the 3. And the truth is, if they've brought 3 relatively balanced lists, you can build skews that are so heavily skewed that these balanced lists won't have the tools to deal with them, because certain factions have to skew into skews, right? That's kind of what they have to do. So it would be like running like someone running a Stannis, a Renly side list without much of the auto wound stuff. So something like maybe it's a Courtney or an Eldon, and your opponent running like a Mag list, and Mag just comes over and beats the shit out of everything, and you just lose.
Yep.
Because you don't have any way of dealing with it. And that's just one, like, it's a very very basic example, because I've not gone into like the detail there. But for me, I just find that side of it, I feel like, is relatively unexplored with the people who are running the 3 list format. They're all just trying to build 3 lists, and I don't know if you saw it as well a little bit, but like 3 lists that were very similar across the 3 pairings. And at that point, it was like, well, you're just running different flavors of the same list, really. At that point, which we saw with, I don't know if you saw any Stark players with it, but we've seen like the double Tully Cavalier with Great John, and then you see the double Tully Cavalier with Rob, and it's like, this is basically the same list.
Hmm.
It's slightly different, but like, you're not investigating. The whole point of the 3-list format is to like investigate third lists. And I found a lot more that either people just have the same lists with a different commander, or they do completely like truly awful like builds with commanders. Like this High Sparrow list is at least interesting. I personally don't think it's good, but this is a bunch of stuff you don't see outside of the Golden Company Swordsman, right? This is a bunch of stuff you don't see in the other lists, right? So at least it is an explorative list in that it might be weaker than the other two. You might perceive it as weaker, but it is at least a list build that is not the same as the other two you're running. So it is different. Whereas I think if you're just running the same lists, I think it is an issue. I think for me, the interesting thing is as well, and this is a genuine query actually, because Asia's had a lot of this 3-list format going on. You said the competitive players didn't like it, it took away agency. Have you found you've played into more different commanders since playing the 3-list format a little bit more?
So outside of like the 4 matches that I had in Thailand, which was essentially the 4 most played commanders out of each of the faction, I was up against Kevin, I was up against Eddard, I was up against John, and I was up against Great John. So was that commanders that's not played? Not at all. Those are all like the most played commanders out of each maybe Eddard, but
Eddard and Great John feel.
Eddard and Great John is like almost interchangeable to some extent, just the different flavors of extra attacks that you want, really. But essentially, I think like the runner-up player was running essentially 3 lists, but they all have the exact same composition almost. Tully Calf with Winterfell Guardian, and then the NCU suites is just Arya and Sansa.
Okay. Really heavy.
So yeah, it's just a really heavy. It's a bunch of 5/2s lists that normally in like the previous meta it was really bad, but he piloted really, really well. But essentially, if you just close your eyes, it's just the same list, really. Like all 3 different things. You just see Golden Company Swordsman with different commanders or in different attachment. You see Arya and Sansa still. You still see Tully Calf with Winterfell Guardian. You still see the wolves. So you're right. It does. It just incentivizes people to bring the same component, especially when your faction is already built upon a strong foundation like Nightwatch, right?
Yeah.
You're just switching out between Cotter Pike, Jon Snow, and some random third commander that like Othel, and you just bring a few war machines and call it a day. For a few other factions, I think I was talking with Caldogo on this one. He brought Drogo, Marcellin, and Queen of Marine.
Yes.
And that was three different lists that wants to do 3 different things. So at the very least, that in his mind, he wanted to do different things. It's just that he still has at least a dragon in each of the lists, because otherwise, if you're stuck without a dragon against against a Lannister, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah,
you have nothing to break through like the knights. You have nothing to break through like the knights essentially.
Yeah.
And you have no way to clip the crossbow. Well, yeah, okay. Targaryen has plenty of way to clip the crossbow, but not so reliable as the dragon.
Yeah, and you mentioned the knights there. The team event we were at the weekend. John, who wasn't playing on our team, one of our local players, playing a different team, and he said after one game, he came to me and said, I had my Drogo list, and I just really struggled to kill a unit of Knights of Castle Rock with a 3+ armor, and I was like, exactly the same thing you said there, which is you just need a dragon. Like, unfortunately, you just need a dragon for when you have to fight those heavy armored things, which is not uncommon now, right? With the likes of Tully Cav, Knights of Castle Rock, even GCS, existing on the 3+, 4+ base. You know, yeah, you just need a
and the random max really.
Yeah, exactly. And the random mag here plus animals, of course. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I'm interested because I've not played 3-list format, so I've always, as much as I've talked about it, I can't comment against it fully because it's like, oh, you haven't played against it, you haven't played it, you don't know. But like, you've played it, you've experienced it, and it's interesting that you and ironically, the competitive players in the region that you are in as well are all basically saying the same thing in terms of like, it's cool, it's fun, it's interesting, but it's not really something long term. Certainly in the current balance that you think is that good. I don't know.
It just okay. So let me just sort of like wrap up this opinion with essentially me saying that at the very least that it's something new and interesting, and people are, are sort of forced to be creative with their list building. So that in itself is not a bad thing. What it does encourage, though, is you essentially making the same core component, but just switching out the commander and tech pieces. Like, exactly just what I said. Like, Tolikaf plus Golden Company Swordsman plus Wolf, and then everything else is just swapperino between things. Or like if you're a Targaryen player, then your branch decision becomes: do I bring dragon or do I not bring dragon? One non-dragon list could be better against the free folk type of list, or the list with like 4+ less armor, whereas the dragon list is sort of like the armor cracker type of things. Baratheon player could be like benefited also with this one because you can bring a more variety of stuff on the battlefield. Though we didn't see too much Baratheon players. So some factions do get more mileage out of this 3-list format simply because they can then bring a few more interesting tools. Like, I don't know, Stannis Cavalier, Renly with like the auto precision, and one just Courtney plus Rose Knight plus Stack Knight, just an immovable wall. So you can bring a selection of lists that could be interesting. But so for some other factions, which is already very good to begin with, like Stark or Lannister, then the list devolves into some sort of very samey list. You're gonna see Knights of Casterly Rock, you're gonna see Tywin, Crossbow, Tyrion Halberdier, Golden Company Swordsman. Just mix and match between each of the different commanders, and then you're just essentially putting the best commanders in each of the different types of units, and then you just run it as it is. Also, one more.
Just to tack on what you've just said there, though, and I think this is really what I think the 3-list format wants to be, and maybe, but I'm not going to pretend that I know how to make it work, but I think what you just said there is very interesting, like the same units. Like, what I would love to see is a way of bringing things like Bloody Mama Skirmishers, which I don't think I've seen a unit of Bloody Mama Skirmishers on the field for a long time. You want stuff that's going to incentivize those kinds of units being played, because if anything, what used to be a big part of the balance of the game used to be the commander, because the commander would dictate a lot of aspects of a list. I feel that right now, and Carlo had kind of said it a little bit, right now it's actually the units that are dictating most of your list building. In that, if you want to win a game with Tyrion, you basically just build a Kevin 8 list, but then put Tyrion Commander in it. And that's probably fine. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of unfortunate list building at the moment where we're not seeing less units get, like the lesser picked units actually get picked in the kind of what we might term off-meta commanders. The closest we've got here in the list you've shown here is guards make an appearance over Halbs, for the supremacy mostly, I'm guessing, and then like the warrior sons rather than GCS, because you can't have 2 units of GCS with the Su7 pointers. But everything else in the list, like Gregor, GCS, Tyrion 1-pointer, Pycelle, Varys, Turncoats, these are all picked. You don't see Kevin that much, so that's a bit of an interesting thing. But you're right, it's changing the fringe stuff, but it's how do we make that fringe stuff be played more without just straight up buffing it and making it better, which is what Simon would have to do. Something like Bloody Mama Skirmishes.
And many other things, really.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
Well, I think like we're sort of like, and also I think my last quote unquote complaint of the 3-list format is that as a player who has to travel overseas, that requires me to bring more units.
yeah, there is that. Yeah.
If it was a local tournament where I just need to drive, like I don't care as much. But if I have to put them in like my check-in luggage in the airplane, then it would be like adding an extra box, which ended up happening.
Which is actually, it's really interesting you say that, because again, indirectly, and it is only like a small thing with international, but indirectly it does actually encourage you building lists with the same things, doesn't it? Because then you don't have to pack as much.
Yeah, I mean, like I was more than happy to just bring like all Knights of Castle Rock on all my lists, because that means like, all right, that's it. This one unit is gonna see table play, and I don't need that much like luggage space. But instead, I opted for this mountain list, this High Sparrow list, which ended up making me bring Warrior Sun, which only sees one appearance, Guardsman, which only sees one appearance, and yeah, those 2 extra units, which two more trays, so that means an extra box that I have to bring.
Fair. All right. I mean, there's loads of people in chat talking about the whole thing.
No, there's conversations.
Yeah, lots. I'm not going to catch up on all of it. Some people just chatting about this, that, and the other.
But I think just to wrap up on like the event of itself, I think
we'll talk about the event. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, Simon Asia did an excellent job. I think it was a very well run event. Getting all the players there, they're providing a lot of interesting goodies. Have you seen the tactics board that they gave out? The one with the polyphrene materials.
You mean the Is it the
one that looked like that? I'll send you a picture.
Yeah. Is it the one that says I've got the one that says Super Regionals on it. Is it that?
Yeah, mine. Yeah, it's similar to that. Yeah, mine has the Bangkok Simon Expo in there,
and it's got a spare space for the extra zone if you run.
Yeah. So a lot of the interesting goods that they picked out is cool. I also got the Vice to Truck playmat.
Yes.
Which is also a very cool bounty to have. So in terms of the price support, I think they went quite all out with it. I know, like I was talking with Brick, that he wanted to give it to that one. Yeah. He wanted to give like the playmat to all the participants, but I think at this point they're not capable of doing that just yet. Mm-hmm. So maybe for next year, they're aiming for more. But clearly, it was a very well run event. I think all the players that I talked to had fun. It gives us a lot of it encourages us to meet everyone in person. There's some language barrier, but it is what it is. But people have fun, speaking the language of the game. The nature of offline game in general can be a little bit sloppy when it comes of playing, and that's fine. We sort of just accepted the fact that people are just gonna move things around or tilt an extra 1 or 2 inch, which is perfectly fine. I think people shouldn't make too much fuss about it, because it's just what it is, right? But it was fun. It's been a while since I played Civ on the table in such a high level of competition, and it was really great. Again, kudos to Simon Asia for pulling it off. Thank you for Joshua Brick for arranging the whole entire thing. That was an excellent run event, and I think everyone had fun. And next year they're aiming for, I think, 100 players is what
I've heard.
Hearing.
It's definitely feasible. It's possible, right? It's definitely an achievable goal. I think it's going to be a big ask for the Asia region alone to do it. The only reason I say that is purely because a lot of the national events were running anywhere between 10 to 20 players, roughly speaking, I believe. Yep. And with it being 6 nations that they did it in, you would need
10, 20, 15 nations
players from each, which or more, which is a little bit unrealistic. And that's not to say that you can't get that, but it's unrealistic in the sense of there will be players who go to nationals, even Indonesian nationals yourself, right? You had someone who actually did better than the 3 players that went, but they were unable to go or were never really able to go for whatever reason, or then couldn't go, or simply don't want to have to travel. All of these various reasons can come up. And so when you're looking, I think it's different when you're pulling from like a large group of players, but when you're pulling from a relatively small group of players everywhere, it gets a lot harder. And I know that Brick is looking to expand out. I think he's going for like 10 countries next year that he's going to try and include within the banner. Which obviously 10 countries all of a sudden, getting 10 from 10 different countries. That's
awesome.
that's not actually massively unreasonable. That's possible, and then obviously the host country might supply a few more. But yeah, like I think if the community's growing and you get seeing more players play the game, it's a positive thing. And obviously, 100 players would be amazing.
And I have to defend my title, Nikki.
You do?
Like they actually gave me like an actual title.
Yeah,
I have to defend now.
I saw that, right? You are the Warden of the East.
Warden of the East.
Yeah.
Very appropriately.
Now, I'm to be honest, I'm glad it happened. They said they were going to do the Battle of the Realms. I always called them when they first got like announced or mentioned Realms of Battle. I think, which is like not at all the right thing.
It's a game, right?
Yeah. But the Battle of the Realms, they mentioned they're doing it, and these replacements of a world championships in the meantime as basically like regional championships, European regionals, Asian regionals, American regionals, for want of a better term. I've got a genuine question for you now, and we know that Brick is somewhat attached to the community in that he was a community player who been a member of the community since the Kickstarter basically, and he's ended up working for CMON on behalf of like marketing and organized play in the Asia region. We don't see anyone in that role for Europe. We don't really see anyone in that role for the Americas. Officially, right? There is no official person who does that. That's known to the community as well, right? Whereas, like, you talk to most people who've been online, certainly anyone who's interacted with the Discords, they can probably tell you who Brick is, at least. I'm not going to be negative about it, but it's very interesting. Brick has obviously taken this and done a lot of this growth by working with the communities. We haven't seen that in other areas. I'm super glad they got it working. I'm super glad that, Warden of the East is a thing. I'm not as convinced at this moment in time that Europe is going to get the same thing as of yet. It will be interesting to see, they want to roll it out over time maybe. But I think it's going to be a big ask because we already know, like, the player base in Europe, certainly so far from the tournaments we've seen, is massive compared to a lot of the others. So it'll be interesting to see if they roll it out, how they look to plan to do it. And of course, they wouldn't be able to tie it onto a CMON Expo, right? Because there isn't really a CMON Expo in Europe.
So I think I don't have the capacity to answer that question.
Of course you don't.
I think, like, if you want this to be properly answered, you should bring Brick and Vincent maybe to the show.
Yeah, 100%. I will do. I wasn't really looking for an answer, but I just thought certainly your opinion of it, and I guess the much wider question of, now that you've got the title, would you consider traveling further afield as well, somewhere, let's say, like America, or more, I guess, like, it wouldn't be like full on middle of Europe, but like somewhere like Poland? Would you travel that far for some basically combination of the different champions from the different areas? Would that be something you would do or not?
like honestly speaking, like I've never really sort of planned to travel like all the way down to wherever it is.
Mhm.
But I think now that it is basically the impetus is there. I think it has rekindled my tournament flame again.
Okay.
So this time, I think personally, I might be interested
Mhm.
if such a thing would happen, and of course, if there is some support from Simon in terms of like what this is when for all of this, it would be much even better. But I'm down to like meet some people from Poland, like my buddy Camille from.
Mhm. Yeah.
Met him since like ages ago. I haven't seen him in person.
Mhm.
We'll be down to meet with some of them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because like obviously that's about you really, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's like you want to run the events, but then it becomes a case of whether or not you can actually support running that event and attending those events, which is a different entire matter, isn't it? We don't tackle, but like if you'd have had to, for example, pay for flights, for example, you probably still would have gone, but there would have been other people who may have been more put off by that because it's not cheap. This thing
No,
isn't
it's
cheap.
not. The amount of people who's willing to pay for a trip to Europe is very small.
Yeah.
At least from this region, because I think like one of the things that you also need to know about the Asia region is that we're not exactly a land-based region.
No.
We can't just like if you want to go like for example like a tournament in Germany, you just take a train ride. Like you don't need to take an airplane, you don't need to like travel overseas because Schengen. Oh wait, you're not part of the Europe. Sorry, Mickey.
No, it's different for the UK, but for Europeans in general, yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
that was a jab at you. But like for example, for Thailand, because it's located overseas, we have to take an airplane, 3.5 hours. So for a lot of people, that's a challenge. Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia, China, they all have to take airplane to go to Thailand. And now like they sort of put Thailand as like the hub for everyone in Bangkok because it's an excellent city. There's lots of wargaming presence there, lots of tabletop community, lots of magic, blah blah blah. So it's a very geeky town because just for some very strange reason. But for us to travel overseas requires basically a lot of effort, and it's not verifiable for such big tournaments to happen every now and then, especially if you're then asking to go to like Poland or America. Because hell, even if there's like a tournament in Australia, I doubt a lot of people would go.
Well, that's actually,
and Australia is just like
that's actually the most interesting thing, right? For me, and again, no disrespect to obviously organisers and everything like that, but Australia for a long time was like had a good scene, and we've kind of the Australian scene's kind of died a little bit. When I say died a little bit, I don't mean like died as in it's gone. People are still playing Song in Australia. We just don't hear from them as much as we used to. And that's partially me personally, but also I think people in the community. That's not to say the game is dead. It's probably far from it. There's probably a lot of people playing still. But because we don't hear as much about it externally, it gets harder to know what's going on. But you didn't have any Australian / New Zealand representatives, right?
It wasn't part of the Battle of the Realms for this season, I guess.
Okay, I'm guessing it will probably.
But I think, it will be included in next year. I think like so for me, so just to go back to like your whole comment on like whether such things can be happening in Europe as well as in America, I think it'll take some time. I think they're using Asia as like a test ground for the tournament series, right? Because again, CMON in Asia is based in Singapore, and Brick is also based in Singapore. So I think they don't want to like bite something more that they can chew, right? So they just go with the region first. Let's see how everyone is, use it as like a test model, and then once you have a nice thing, because like if for example like the 3-list format doesn't work, or there's like some challenges to the 3-list format, when you bring it to like the bigger community in Europe, for example, people are not going to be interested. So that could, like it's not good for you to implement something on like to a bigger scale where you don't have like a test ground first. Because now that you have a success story, you have some feedback from players, you have some data to base your decision on,
Mhm.
then you can then go back to like the spirits and says, all right, this is not working, this is not working, this is working. When we're going to bring it to the European community, this is what adjustments that we're going to do.
Yeah.
For example. So it takes some, it will come eventually. I'm hoping. There are very ambitious plans for the organized play next year to expand more. Again, the 100 player is already a very ambitious plan to begin with for like the next Battle of Realms, where I have to defend my title. So, oh boy. But
sure
yeah, I mean, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. The only one regret that we didn't have is we didn't print team T-shirts.
Yes,
Like
right.
you see the Thailand people, the one with the purple shirt, they come well prepared.
Yeah,
They got their names on. They get their Simon logo. They get their Team Thailand in. Like, man, organized.
Yeah, I was. I did notice a few of that from not just them though, but a few other people as well who were wearing like team tournament T-shirts or like at least tried to match somewhat. But yeah, it's. I mean, and this links into the next thing, which we talked about last week, or I talked about last week. But the other piece of news, which now old, but what you got to experience in real time, which is the obviously announcement of Tactics. What you saw it all live, you saw it all happen, you saw the dragon miniature and everything else that was out as well. What's your feeling on Tactics?
I think it allows the game to explore what, because thanks to the House of Dragon series, people are more interested in that period of time in Civ history, right? And the Song of Ice and Fire, I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, where's Prime Bobby B, or where's Rhaegal, and the setting specifically says no, it's after like Bobby B died, so you're not gonna get all of that. So they're sort of somewhat obliged to just run it with the War of the Five Kings in mind. But this Tactics series allows us to explore a different timeline in the Civ story, and the direction that they're going to, which is skirmish based. We don't know yet how skirmish it will be.
No?
In the sense that how much model, is it like 5 models, like 10, 15 models, etc. But I think it's an interesting direction, and they do say also there's some cross compatibility between the current Civ models and the new one. So I'm guessing that there will be also so some people who've played Civ now can just reuse their models if they wish to,
which would be good. I mean, just out of curiosity, I mean, you play a lot of war games. Would you? I mean, it's a bit of a loaded question because I think I know the answer. But if Tactics, let's say Tactics released tomorrow, right? If it did, would you probably just like start trying it out straight away? Obviously, you'd want to see the rules. Obviously, you'd want to do this, that, and the other. Do you think that obviously testing it out is one thing? Do you reckon that the people in your gaming club that you'll play down your local stores and stuff, do you think they'll probably pick that up, and do you think it might be easier to get people in for the game at that, like, what we assume to be at the moment a lower miniature level of game?
So ironically, that's sort of like the selling point of Civ to begin with, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Pre-assembled miniatures, only 4 units and 3 NCUs. Well, 4 to 5 units. You don't have a lot of things. Compared to every other servings of war games, Civ is by far the most user-friendly. Okay. You can literally open a starter with like 2 boxes, and there you have a competitive army. Mm-hmm. So this, I think, would appeal more to perhaps painters, I would say.
Okay.
Because then they can put so much more attention on each of the individual models, because they will be the centerpiece of the army. And I think a lot of skirmish-based games will attract these type of players as well. So players is not exactly like a huge fan of this big ass army. Instead, they want to focus on like a few key models and key pieces. So this will attract them more. But of course, the IP sells as well. people who enjoys playing Civ, people who got exposed to Civ thanks to House of the Dragon, they obviously want to play, Targaryen.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. So I'm sure I'll definitely pick it up for a very non-biased reason. Just because I'm a shill already in Civ, so.
Yeah,
and I'm sure like the cross pollination is very like rich as well. I think like they created like a new Discord for like tactics, and all I'm seeing is just the same people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the cross pollination is there.
I fully expect a huge number of people who play current song. Like, to be honest, I'd be worried if 100% of the current song players pretty much didn't at least give tactics a go, right? I'd have thought all of the song players that I know that you know would at least give tactics a go. I'd be super interested to see if we pick up a lot more players, with it being like a low-level skirmish is what we're thinking it is, certainly. I'd be wondering to see if we get a large influx of players from the likes of Malifaux, Mordheim, and the Warcry, and your MCP style gamers. Whether or not it might attract more of those across into the hobby as well, which will be interesting. Established games, of course, but different themes.
I think it will have to depend on how. Okay, so the interesting thing about skirmish game in general is just that it's very rules dependent. Because you don't have like a big army that you sort of can do with like all the movement and gameplays. So each of the models have to be representative, and they have to be interesting enough for it to make it work. Whereas the case in most skirmish-based games, there has to be that hook that people are interested in, like what makes it different for each of the games, right? So, if it's like an alternate activation, most every other is already doing that, so it's not exactly a key selling point. Like when Civ does it, it's a huge selling point.
Yes.
But when like Tactics is trying to do that with like, the key activation is a multiple, this alternating activation, MCP is doing that. Everyone's already doing that. Like there's no like big hook. So we'll have to see how they are doing it in terms of like the rules, how tight the rules are, how competitive the rules are. Because some skirmish games are meant to be more beer and pretzel-y, whereas some other most other skirmish games is very tight in terms of their rulings, which attracts competitive players.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I guess that's the thing for me. Obviously, at this time, we don't know the rules. It was impossible to tell how good, bad, ugly, cool, interesting. It really is impossible to tell at this moment anything about the actual gameplay. However, do you think, like, let's say it's written reasonably well, and the game is decently fun, got decent balance. Let's say it kind of mirrors Sif in that the balance is fun. It has some interesting mechanics that work well in a skirmish game. Do you think you'd see yourself playing Tactics as a competitive game on top of Sif as well?
That would have to depend on the length of the game.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair. Very fair.
Because if it's meant to be like and I'm still not sure whether this is going to be also like a companion game to Sif or whether they want to stand on its own 2 feet. I'm guessing they want to stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah.
But it will also have to depend on like how long each of the game would take. I know Malifaux can take like hours.
It can.
Infinity can take hours. Malifaux can take hours. But like a smaller game such as I'm not sure if you've ever played. Have you played Marvel Crisis Protocol before?
Yeah, I've played MCP. Yeah.
The MCP can be played in less than 40 and like less than an hour, so that's an okay length for like a side skirmish game. But at the same time, it'll have to depend. Like I know that the model count is really low, but for me, like my biggest issue with skirmish type of games is the terrain. Always the terrain.
Yes. Yeah. Huge issue. I know. Well, I was interested by the comments they made about the tiles and obviously the dragon being a playable thing. And actually, I mean, for me, the dragon is like a telltale sign, right? And I discussed this a few times with people now. But the dragon terrain piece, they're saying that's actually like a playable piece of terrain in the game.
Hmm.
For me, I was like, there's no way you're fitting like more than like really on playable space on that tile, for want of a better term. You might get 3 models aside. Right?
And how am I going to put that in the plane?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. You wouldn't pack this on the plane at all. This would definitely be like a certain scenario or something, a bit like the Galactus. But yeah, for me, I was like, maybe if this is a playable thing, it might only be like 2 or 3 models aside. And at 2 or 3 models aside, I was thinking much more along the lines of like the very small skirmish type things, where literally you are playing on like a at most 2 foot by 2 foot playing area.
So a bit more like Underworlds, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that actually could be an interesting direction for them to go. If certainly on the smaller playing area, if you literally need like a 2 by 2 playing area, that is like really like anyone could play that anywhere. Like you could go to the coffee shop and play that over a coffee, right?
Yep.
Just 2 foot by 2 foot is nothing. But I'm pretty sure.
So I've experienced this game called Bushido. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. They've also been played in a 2x2. So I think there is a blueprint for like a very small table size skirmish games. 2x2 I think it's an okay size for a skirmish game. Like you just said, the appeal was basically it's a beer. You could play it in a coffee shop. But I think like what's the most important part of this type of game, at least if you're looking for, because there's already like a blueprint for using 2D terrains in Civ, right? You just slap a piece of swamp down and it's a swamp. So
yeah,
if they want to like, because you know most of the other miniature games, you need to have like those full-fledged terrains, which could get very wonky. But if they're aiming for like compactability and like sleek game design, smaller model, smaller area, 2D terrain should be the way to go.
Yeah.
Tile system could be interesting. Like Shape Underworlds does tile system, and they've done it really really well with like the mix and match between the cards and the objectives. Very interesting. They might implement like the similar thing, like each commander, like having just like the commander cards that you have in Civ in like a tactics could be interesting as well, right? So not only that the commander have their own like little abilities, but they also have their decks associated with them. That'll be also pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. We are talking about a completely new game here at this point, so obviously the design space is essentially infinitely big.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of things they could do which links in the current stuff that they've got, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's do they move further away from Civ as it stands, or do they build something that would work alongside it quite well? And I think they've got a lot of options, obviously. Yeah, hopefully, big positive thing. It will bring lots of players in, right? I mean, the video that's been on screen, by the way. The video announcing it has been released for just over 2 days on the actual CMON on CMON's YouTube, and it has already been watched by like over 3,000 people, which is a good start. And this is without any real advertising externally, of course. So it'll be really interesting. Obviously, we'll see how the Kickstarter goes, because the Kickstarter is what will decide how popular the game will look and what ends up being in the game, and hopefully see some game mechanics as well. Yeah, could be interesting. It should be fun.
It's made by the same guys who make. I hopefully make by the same guys who make Song of Ice and Fire. So
yeah.
I have high hopes in the design team.
Did I know that Fabio was at the event? Did he mention it at all to yourself? Did he whisper anything in your ear when you picked up your trophy from him? Say like, my tactics.
No, he just said that. He just said that whenever he wants to have another like like developer talk, or like if we have any specific topics for him, we could just shoot him a message and say like if he has some time he'll join. So he just basically extends an arm saying that, hey, we can do that. And also, I'm not sure if this is pretty much confirmed.
Okay.
But just for the sake of me not I might have misheard of it, or I might have people talk to insist, but Bolton might be able to get access to neutral.
Oh, is that something he said pretty much?
Yep.
Fair.
Because I think like they're seeing somewhat the flaws in Bolton's, and so they're saying that they can now use neutrals.
That
but
would be... I'm not going to say that would fix Bolton's, but I'm pretty sure that would go a long way to at least starting to fix Bolton's a little bit. It's funny, isn't it? Hey, this faction's not doing well. What's the solution? Give them neutrals. That'll do.
I mean, it didn't work. Imagine if Free Folk has access to neutrals, right?
Yeah, only Free Folk. If Free Folk got access to neutrals, I'm sure they would.
Ferris.
Yeah.
Imagine yes, or wait. No.
They would. Let's
not do stupid things. No.
I could do some horrible things with some neutral commanders in Free Folk.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's about it that he mentioned. He just said that he's quite happy with like the tournament. I think he's quite excited in the tournament. He just said that if he wants to have a chat with him about anything, game design, etc., like just send him a message, and then if he can come in, yeah, he just basically mentioned about the whole Bolton situation, and it says they are heavily considering them to be using neutrals, maybe at like the same restriction still at everyone else at 14 points,
which is fine,
which is fair. But yeah, I think that's about it that he said in terms of like secret things.
I was not expecting you to tell me that. I was expecting you to say no. He said nothing secret, but whispered in my ear like sweet nothings or something like that. Well done. And
oh, there's something else that he told me, but I'm not gonna say it here. I'll just say it to you in private.
Oh wow! Did he tell you he wants to take you on a lovely date and meal? Because if he did, then
oh dear.
No. All right. So cool. I mean, that's interesting. Obviously, I think that's everything covered from Simon Asia. I think. Yeah. That's it, isn't it? Yeah.
I think
all
so.
the things you went through. And you enjoyed yourself, which is the important thing. I know. I think something that is sometimes forgotten, but obviously, we'll reiterate it. These events are put on for people to have fun, and if people achieve having fun, then that's a good thing. So, thumbs up from me. All right then. Next thing we're going to talk about. I know, right? We've only gone through one topic. But no, the next thing's a much easier topic, and you did actually kind of mention it earlier on today, indirectly, if anyone picked up on it. And it's the online team event that's running, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're playing in it.
I am. I've been drafted in the old man team.
The old man team. Running.
Look, we're all like players who've played this game from like ages ago. Like me, Bob, Brett, Larks, Bloodraven.
Oh,
like these are all the old guards.
Proper old guard.
Yeah.
You're running Martells. Is this the first time you've run Martells?
This is the first time I've run Martells because Bob took Lannister.
Fair.
No, because I think like this is just the nature of the team tournament, right? So I basically when they assembled the team and then they gave us options of what to run, I said that I'm comfortable in Lannister, Free Folk, and Martell. And Bob wants to run Lannister. Larks was extremely confident in running Free Folk. So then I'll just run Martell.
I love how you're like extremely confident with Martell, and you've never played them, right?
How hard would it be? Jeez. Just rising temperature. Jeez, like, how hard is it? Like, seriously, just take horse with sand skirmishers. Like, how difficult it would be. But no, but for real, though, like I played Martel in like offline games, so
yeah.
it's not like I'm completely clueless about playing Martel.
No. But it's just the first time I've ever seen you run them, and I thought it was interesting, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, obviously the old man team as well. It's interesting. So running, obviously this is the second team event that Gamma's run.
Mhm.
And did you have a look at the faction breakdown? It's worth remembering that factions can't repeat.
Mhm.
Let's just really big up the 0% of people who picked Bolton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the thing that I told you earlier is a good start, huh?
Yeah. More neutrals than Boltons, which is it's okay, but it's pretty sad, really. But apart from that, Targ's on the lower end, but pretty much everything else picked. And again, you see like Lannisters up there as one of the highest picked factions, which is not a surprise at this point. I don't think anyone is overly surprised to see Lannisters being picked up by nearly every team.
What I'm interested in looking at is Mickey is because the rule of the tournament says that only one player can bring neutrals, right?
Yes.
I'm just curious to see like which faction ended up bringing neutrals, because the neutral option was left to me. Because I Martel needed the most help, I think, with neutrals, because they get access to Littlefinger and they get access to GCS, which is important.
So it looks like yours, obviously the first list there. So you've got neutrals in your pairing as a Martel. It's going to take a while, so I'm just going to have to scan. But we see Martels getting them in the Abominable Snowmen list, which is kind of like the Canadians mixed. So you've got the Canadians and you both opting with Martels for neutrals. My team, Decipher Kidnaps Us, also picking up neutrals in Martels. Again, interesting.
Seems you're on the same mind then.
Yeah. Lannister's going fresh out. That's it.
Because Lannister doesn't well, outside of Littlefinger and Varys, obviously, which is really good. Like Lannister has like good NCUs, like has good NCU mix.
Yeah, and it comes back to really the question of like, do you want to run? It's interesting actually here they've been picked up by a Night's Watch player in the Stairway to Valor team. Yeah, the Varys picked up in the Night's Watch lists. But yeah, I mean it's interesting because you're right in a sense of like Lannisters don't really care if they don't have access to GCS that much. Like not the end of the world if they don't have GCS. And then the only thing actually that does matter is the NCUs. Whereas like other factions might want GCS and then the NCUs are a big boon on top. I don't think it's good, but more people should have picked Qyburn for the memes.
No, but Qyburn one wound can kill if you didn't realize it.
Yeah, it's great. It's not
good. Like it's just an auto wound.
It is just an auto wound. Yeah, so I mean, it is interesting. I quite like Lannisters. There you go. Beer Belly team have a neutral player, so rip. Running a Dario list. Hey.
Hell yeah.
I love that list. I don't even know if it's that very good. But that is a lovely list. Yeah. Kudos for that. And then a bit more of a classic roots type thing. Yeah, that's fair. Lanny have some.
So yeah, I think I think my first opponent is going to be a Baratheon player. I'll need to schedule a game with him eventually. But I think he's in EU time, so it'll be a little bit interesting time wise. But I'm sure we can make it work. Mm-hmm. Either this Thursday or Friday, we'll see.
Good.
But yeah, Martel. I've played Martel. I haven't played Daemon Sands, but how hard could it be?
Can't be that hard. I mean, you got double knights, right? Just apply knights into things and I'm sure they'll
You
die.
just play knights. Just play like Lannisters.
Yeah,
Just-
play like
That's literally what Blood Raven told me. Just play like Lannisters. I'm like, all right, cool.
Lannisters, kill some people, you'll be fine. Interestingly, Carlo saying there that Lancer Samson are the worst NCUs if not taking Tywin. I'm surprised actually not seeing. I mean, obviously I don't know what he's building his lists for and what he's looking at. He's not wrong with like High Sparrow and Cersei aren't that amazing in the Kevin 8 list. They're pretty mediocre at best, if that. But I'm surprised he didn't pick up Tywin in his other list either, though. Favoring double knight.
Carlo not bringing Tywin? Blasphemy.
All right. Literally Carlo's favorite character, outside of like game mechanics. So I'm surprised he didn't pick up Tywin.
But double knights though.
Double knights. Armor charge people, which got Lance Cavalry. Not a terrible choice. Brett's running Night's Watch without neutrals. I was going to mention this. So NSB running double dragon Drogo, and I think this.
That seems to be the thing.
Yeah.
Double dragon Drogo.
I think double dragon Drogo and Drogo in Screamers giving you a 7-point infantry unit, which is usually GCS. And then 2 5s and a 4 on the NCUs.
That's a pretty sick list.
Yeah. This might almost be what we might call meta targs now. It's such a bizarre list in that, like, if you just look at like Screamers with Drogo rather than Blood Riders, double dragons, and then a unit of infantry, just that alone, nothing feels like in place, right? It all just feels like a proper Modge Podge of stuff. But it's doing well. It's pulling out a lot of wins and doing well, so hope
Yeah, because like Assault Order with dragons and Daenerys is just you can like shoot with your dragon 3 times in one round.
And you can just kill people with that. And it gets even worse if you took swords and other things. And the overruns are obviously in the deck. When you get the kills. Allows to pick up neutrals here actually, from the significant raiders. Yeah. It's interesting, definitely. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the event. I'm playing against Team Martell list, I think. Got it listed. I'm playing Baratheon. I'm playing their Baratheon player. So Team 2's Baratheon player. I'm playing against Golden Boy.
What are you running? Free folk?
Free folk, yeah.
Why am I even asking? Double Rose Knight, you.
Double Rose Knights, double High Guns. I think Rose Knights have gotten value. The drop to 5 morale is deceptively good. Obviously being on 6, it was sad. But on 5 morale, I think the Rose Knights are actually pretty decent now. Riders of High Garden, though, in a 7 activation list are so viable just to getting killed. Yeah, it's difficult. And then double Riders with champs friendly. That's a don't kill me list. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. See how that goes. Indeed.
That should be fine.
I mean,
Says you never playing Martell.
I'm not worried.
Lars, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. No,
I'm not particularly worried. All right then, we'll move on anyway. But that's the team event that's now going ahead online. We played a team event this weekend, which was good fun. Was me, Carlo, Dan, and our new player Aaron, representing Durham Wargames Group. Played against 5 other teams. We played against 3. 6 teams at the event in total, which was a really good time. Went out for curry afterwards, lovely. And the event was won by Chelmsford Bunker. So Paul, Winter, Carl Christie, Grant from Yecats Miniatures, and I always forget where is he? James Sonic, as well. So this was a 1 list event, where every team member only had 1 list, and then they did like a snake or an attempted snake pairing using the CMON pairing document. The CMON pairing document needs some work. Was the general takeaway at the end, in that it's not like a bad document and it's not a bad way of doing it, but with 4 players, it basically meant that one team picked one of the matchups. One of the matchups was like random, basically, and then the other team picked 2 of the matchups, which, as you can probably tell, it does favor one team over the other slightly. But if it was a 5-player team, it would probably be fine with that format. But if you are using the team tournament document from CMON, it might be worth just having a little look at how you do the pairings and cleaning it up a little bit. Because the whole thing where you elect a lord and the lord does the pairings, and your lord automatically is paired against their lord, or like captain for that round, is like a whole metagame of like who's been the captain for each matchup, who's been captaining, and can we out-captain their captain. And literally one of our rounds is that none of us particularly wanted to face their captain, just because of lists. And so we deliberately paired our less experienced player as our captain that round, because he was more likely to lose anyway. So we just gave him the matchup none of us wanted. That feels a bit weird, but yeah, it was a good event.
Remember that team tournament that we did with Stannis 1000 Lord Commander?
Oh yeah, back in the day, the TSL.
Yeah. I remember, like, I got thrown against the Night Watch matchup during like that. So because
the awful days,
whoever it was who fought the Night Watch would have lost because of like Stone Thrower.
Yes.
So
that was the Stone Thrower, Bolt Thrower, like the War Machine list that always comes off the back of Night's Watch changes. That is always like actually quite powerful for a little bit of the game, and then nobody plays it for like ages because it just doesn't work.
So I think it was a little bit of the same strategy, right? You just essentially pair up like your worst matchup against their best matchup, and then and then everyone else have a fair fight because you remove like the head of the Titan. Definitely. Essentially.
But yeah. No, so that was good. Good weekend there. Good curry afterwards as well. Good bunch. And yeah, well done for Chelmsford. Got these lovely drinking horns from Alan, who was running the event. Lovely drinking horns. Which, go on, I'll say if I find them. And Alan had even engraved them. It was insanely cool. So I will. There we are. Winning team. Hey. There we are. The drinking horns and a bottle of Hobgoblin. Hey. Carlo's saying Night's Watch weren't strong back then. That was Stark, Free Folk. I think we're talking about the second one, Carlo, which was start of 2021. Because the first one, was the old Stark and Free Folk. That was one where Carlo ran Night's Watch, right? And Senor Builder did all the work.
Senor Builder.
Just after the Senor Builder release. And that was back in season 1. I think we were talking about season 2. Yeah. I have another thing for us to do as well, which is, and you, Vanvan, you can join me in doing this. So by all means, let's have some fun. I was asked on behalf of Stephen McCormack for a Scottish event happening this weekend to go through and pick, and I will quote exactly what he said. Going over the lists and picking the dirtiest list. Okay.
Oh boy.
And the dirtiest list will be winning. I'm sure he won't mind me revealing this. Dirtiest list will be winning. Maimed and Shamed Award. Named Jamie.
Ooh.
Coated in gold.
Oh.
It's not real gold, it's gold paint. But you know,
That's pretty neat.
it is, right? So we're gonna look down this list of players. There's 22 players, which is 44 lists, and we have to pick the dirtiest one amongst them. Now, I am just gonna look down very quickly. I see a steer list that looks relatively fine. Another one looks fine.
Fine. That's fine.
What commanders do you think, if you saw a commander, you think actually I bet that could be pretty dirty?
Gregor.
Gregor. Okay, should we find out see if we've got a Gregor list? So we've got a Gregor list here. Gregor GCS, Lannister Halberdiers, Crossbowmen, Knights of Castle Rock, Tywin,
Nah.
Vice Varys. No.
I mean, Gregor GCS is that's one. That's one.
Okay. He's not getting it. I don't care.
No.
This is Tony Gary. He's running Joffrey and Kingsguard and Sir Robert Strong with Halberdiers. Like, that is the definition of having some fun. Oh, and his Gregor list runs Clegane Mountains Men with Mandan Moor.
Ooh, technology.
That 2+ to hit, Sundering, Crit Blow, Vicious. Let's go!
Yeah, that seems fun, but it's not dirty.
It's not dirty, no. It's a fun list. Let's have a look at this one. Part-time villain with his Gregor list. Here's going to be a more classic. Okay. Gregor in Castle Rock Honor Guard. That is not what I thought I would see.
All right. Technology, but not what I'm looking for.
No, I agree. Any more Gregors? There's no more Gregors on the list. So maybe a Gregor list.
How about John? How about John?
John? No, John's on the list. No, John.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh no, there is one John. I lied to you.
Ooh.
Okay, it's John Hunter's Cold Hands, Shadow Tower Spearman, Muffle,
and
Stone Thrower. No Corrin.
Okay, so it's not dirty enough.
Not dirty enough.
No.
No Corrin.
But this one
does. List either.
No Corrin. Never mind. No Corrin. No dirty.
Not dirty enough. Could be dirtier. I mean, this guy's running Jor Mormont and Danis Mallister, so he's running Corrin attachment. Love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sensing the combat spirit, but nothing too dirty.
That's not too bad. These are pretty. There's a Drogo. Let's have a look at the Drogo list. Drogo Screamers.
Drogo Screamers, Double Dragon?
Ricaro.
Nah, not Double Dragon.
Screamers.
Ricaro?
Ricaro Screamers. I love Ricaro in Screamers. I think it's great. Do I think it's competitive? Probably not, but it's good fun. Right? Do you even know what Ricaro does?
I don't even know what Ricaro does.
He's Sentinel and Elusive Escape, and can't be weakened.
Alright. I don't even remember what he does.
It's good fun. He's good fun. That's not.
But double Outrider though.
Yeah, double Outrider, one with Jorah. I'm a big fan of this style. I think this style is really nice. And this kind of list, I'm a big fan of this list. I think it's a list that I don't think is actually that good, but it's a list that's really fun to play. Just lots of cavalry, lots of movement, shenanigans, and then you just go at one point, put your hands up in the air and shout YOLO really loudly and hope that you kill things.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't love that?
But it's nowhere near dirty.
Not
I think so far, like, my money's on that first Gregor list. Actually, hold on. Is there any Great John? Ooh. Can I say any Great? Is there any Great John?
There are some Great John lists, yeah.
Here we go.
Look. We've got a Great John Umber Eddard pairing.
Okay, this one.
Oh.
This one.
Yep.
This one. Yep.
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 Yep. That's it.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
Ooh. Yeah.
Oh, that's a nasty list. Double with Trafalgar Guardian tap.
Yeah.
Woo.
This is the 7 activation version of the 6 activation version of the Stark list. So this doesn't run Eddard Warden of the North, so it hasn't got the Eddard tokens to heal and reroll the panic tests, which just really doubles down on the Tully Cavaliers. But this is that is a close second. It's a 7 activation version of it.
This one's also pretty nasty though.
That's interesting. Eddard I like this because he's got a bit of a mix, but he has still got the Golden Company swordsman in there as well.
I actually really like trackers now. They're really
trackers.
great.
Yeah.
Pumping out vulnerable and giving traps is pretty solid.
Steve says it's the new Golden Company that they're using as well. So this is Golden Company without Iron Resolve, and no Sundering, but with the rerolls.
Yeah, but like you have a bubble of Tolicaf anyway.
Yes, for the healing.
And Edard, so
Yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. I'll double check because there is another Great John list. I think.
because the NCU selection could be worse. If there's Arya, then it would have been much worse.
No, I was wrong. There isn't another Great John on the list. Oh no, there is. Oh, there is another. Oh, he's on the waiting list. Let's have a look. See what his list was.
Let's see it anyway.
Nah, it was
clean. Nah.
Clean list.
That's a fair list.
Fun though. Like She-Bears with Brendan Tully for the Iron Resolve.
Oh wow!
In She-Bears, like this is something I've seen before. It's 8 points, not that great, but stuff like this is what people should be incentivized to play in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what you want to see in Song, and I'm glad when people feel like they can run events and go and run that kind of stuff, because it is what people feel that should be what Song is about. In which case, I think it has to be Nick, doesn't it? Nick with that Great John list. Named and shamed.
Yeah, because double Tolicaf is just woo.
Yeah.
Double Tolicaf with Winterfell Guardian. Woo.
Yeah. And I did have to check the neutrals there. I was just making sure it wasn't like 5 units of Golden Company Swordsman. And it wasn't. So fine.
So I have to, now that you mentioned it, you know Ben, right? From Singapore.
Yeah.
He brought a list of nothing but Golden Company swordsmen and he got creamed.
Yeah. Yeah, because like they're good, but then you just have lots of units like that, you just lose on objective. There are so many other ways to lose the game is the problem. And all your list is go forward and kill things, right? That's literally all it does.
Yeah. You have no nuance except swing.
Swing, take a hit, play defensive orders, swing some more. Let's go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all the other stuff is relatively clean. Got no name. Oh my god.
Okay. Oh my god. Hold on.
Elden Stag Knights, Glory Seeker Champs, Glory Seeker Champs, Glory Seeker Riders, Tourney Varys.
This one might be in the running actually.
I still think the Great John list is more dirty, but as dirty lists go, this is pretty near the top.
Yeah.
It's a 6 activation, and because the other ones
Nah. Just Great John 7 is superior.
7.
Yeah.
But it's a close
like he paid a lot for 6 activations, right?
Yeah.
So with Stack Knights and Champion, you're not gonna be killing much, but you're not gonna die.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is, unless any of these are particularly. No, there's nothing here that's taking my fancy. I'll look at the double.
The Greyjoy list.
The double Kev or double Victarion, sorry. Silence Men and Silence Men. Okay. And then he's got. That's not dirty. He's running Bloody Mama Zorse Riders. That is a man who deserves a pat on the back. I think they're good.
Hey man, don't do this on like the mummers. Cavalry.
I like the mummer cover.
Oh my god. This guy's a champion. Oh look at Kyburn skirmishers.
Hote in Helms. Skirmishers with Kyburn. That is never something I thought I would see. Sure.
This guy's a legend.
Cassie Rock on a guy with Meryn Trant as well for the.
Oh, that was a sick combo. That's really good.
And he's running Jaime Lannister. Enemy attachment named hostage.
Nice.
I almost feel he should win that award so he can use the gold Jaime Lannister in the event. But the gold Jaime Lannister has got is like a base now, so he wouldn't be able to use it. and then he's running a more classic, like Roost style classic Rock Guard. No, but it's Bance. I love it. But I think the winner has to be the Great John Umber, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So Nick 88, Nick Karasek, from Aberdeen, says here, is the winner of the Maimed and Shamed Award. I hope he enjoys his golden Jamie Lannister. And I know the Scottish guys, when they do these things, they always award this. They don't award it at the end of the event. They actually award it at the start of the event,
Are you
which I think is
serious?
really cool. Yeah, I think it's really cool because then everyone knows at the start of the event that this person's got it. And
It's like a tar and feather kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's a bit of it's fun and games really. It's just the like,
Yeah, of course. You're there to have fun, and it looks like the list, like they're all like, man, I want to participate in this event. Damn, these are all like such a fun list.
Yeah,
to play against
lists that are just different and interesting. And this is actually kind of, circling all the way back to where we started the discussion. Like, this is the kind of thing that you'd hope or want 3-list format to bring out, right?
Right.
But you don't need it. Just let people play in an event that advertises it. It literally advertises it as itself as being a little bit more fun. That's all you need. That's all you need. I love the Scots anyway. The Scots do some banter stuff anyway. But yeah, cool. All right then. We'll go through next week's stuff and then we'll leave it there because I know you're going to have to go to bed soon. It is very late. What time is it? Like nearly 4 in the morning?
It's almost 4 a.m.
Christ, why have you agreed to do
this? It's fine.
Why did you ask and then agree?
What? What?
You asked to be here.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and agreed when I told you the time.
What are you on about?
Oh, you're
this
crazy, man.
This was obviously, a premeditated thing. It's fine. It's okay. I'll regret it in the morning when I wake up, but hey,
You mean in the afternoon when you wake up, right?
Oh, shut up.
All right, we'll run through this week's events then. So we've got an event tomorrow, /today/Tuesday, in AK, that'll be Arkansas in the US. Josh's birthday beatdown. I hope that Josh enjoys his birthday. So Josh is
getting beaten up?
Cool. Happy birthday to Josh for tomorrow. There you go. We've got an event. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. In Konradscheidstrasse in Gortlitz in Germany. Happening this Saturday.
Nope.
A Russian event happening in Russia on Saturday. The 11th event in the GTS, the Goblin Traders in Barcelona. They've run loads of events, loads of little kind of things, up to 20 players. They've been running them constantly. And so the 11th one that they've been putting on since then. Duke's Gaming, Pontypool, I've got a one-day event, just a one-dayer happening this Saturday. Well, good luck to the guys over there in Wales. And Lords of the North having their 6th event in Montreal, Canada. I wonder how many their kind of player numbers are looking like. Oh, 0, but they've got this waiting list. Oh, wow. Yeah, decent-sized waiting list. Yeah, cool. Good to see the Canadians turning out for those events. Love it. War of Earth happening in Alberta, Canada as well, which will be the other half of the Canadian groups, a Quebec side and Alberta side, or Edmonton. An event in Lexington, the third run at the Rusty Scabbard. Ooh, great name. And Protector of the Realm in Florida. Pensacola. The Pensacola group putting on a lot of events now I think about it in the last few months actually. An event in Mexico City. Winter is coming in Mexico City. Love it. An event in Vista, California. This is the Hacienda Drive events series that we've seen there. They've been running on and off the last few months. New Guys Camp SH. That I have no idea where that even is. Location. No players. Oh. Now I'm sad. Another event in Russia. event in Italy, in Viterbo in Italy this Sunday, as well as an event in Ukraine, in Kiev. Warband's half a year of slaughters. They have a massive
Play
logo.
casual, dice hard. I love that.
Yeah. And that's in Old Kiev. Cool. Awesome. For half a year during war times, we built a community. And this tournament is a celebration of the community they created. That was wicked. So, literally, I'm guessing players that have only been playing for about half a year. Amazing. That is actually great to see. Absolutely love that. I hope that goes really well. There's an event in Poland, in Olsztyn. New group in Poland I've not heard of putting events in that region. Any of the players I reckon? Oh, right. I don't recognize any of those names as well. That's another group in Poland now running events, which is insane through stats. The Bolter team putting on another event this weekend in Wrocław in Poland, and another group from the Katowice group as well. Obviously, Common Ground Games, the event in Scotland that Steve McCormick is running. Good luck with that. I hope it goes really well. They always do, but great. Another Shanghai Fight Club for this month in November, running this weekend as well in Shanghai. And we've also got the Hoodie Cat, a Song Ice and Fire tournament in North Charleston, South Carolina. Wow. That was loads of events. Right? $12, $13, $15, $16, $17, $19, $20, 21 events happening this week on stats. That's nuts.
Exciting.
And tons of countries. Germany, Poland, Russia, Ukraine, Shanghai, so China, Germany. Did I mention Germany? Can't even remember. The US, Mexico, 8 or 9 countries representing as well. The UK, Canada, 11 countries representing. Wow, amazing. Honestly amazing. And more events, more people playing the game is what we want. So yeah, hype. Van, thank you very, very much for joining us. Is there anything more you want to say before you leave?
I'm good. It's my 4 a.m. brain in hyperdrive. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay.
I know we've been wanting to talk about this, treeless format for a bit, and I did say to you that I will speak about it if I win it. So, and we did, and I did. So the prophecy is fulfilled. So here we are.
I told you you'd win it. You asked me, should I take Free Folk or Lannister, and went, if you're gonna take Free Folk, you probably will do this, this, and this. Just take Lannister. It's easier.
It is easier.
And that's not.
All right. Well,
not gonna say Free Folk is hard, by the way, there, guys. It was just for the 3-list format. Putting 3 Lannister lists together was easy. That's all. Yeah. Well, no, pleasure as always, buddy. When can I expect to see you / hear from you? No.
What did you say?
Did you just missed that, didn't you? When can I expect to hear from you next or see from you next? When do you think your next event is going to be, do you think, for yourself, apart from the team event?
So I think we're rotating a few games for now. I think we're rotating to Conquest now in locally.
Okay.
But we're gonna have another SIFT tournament hopefully by December.
Alright, cool.
Just maybe more casual ones.
Then move into the new year with some new stuff on whatever happens next year, I guess.
Well, the rumor is January, right? The new update. So
yes, we will see if that materializes, but hopefully maybe do something. All right. Well, appreciate you being with us tonight, Van, and I'm very much thankful for putting away the time and effort. Congratulations again on your win, and I guess to everyone who's been watching, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope there's some stuff to talk about, think about. And I'll probably see you next week. Probably. I'll have to see. But if not, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good time. Enjoy your games. And see you later. Ready? Aim.
There's too many.
Anyone see my mammoth?
Stubby!